Hey folks, Cole Nicholas here. If you haven't already heard of Jorgenson Land Cattle, they are an absolutely stellar organization that got its start as a homestead right here in Tripp County back in 1909. That's 116 years, in case you're counting. Jorgenson Land Cattle are renowned for their top quality beef cattle, which they have been carefully breeding and meticulously recording the results of for over 70 years, or nearly 70 years. I should be careful with my words there. The results of which have enabled them to be the largest seller of bulls in America, according to Beef Magazine. More than just ranchers, they are passionate stewards of the land and have become regional leaders in regenerative agriculture and land conservation. And if that wasn't enough, on top of all of that, they're building a destination location for outdoor sporting activities and enthusiasts to come enjoy the rarity of the prairie. And what impresses me most about Jorgenson Land Cattle isn't just their size or their scale or their quality of work. It's their talent for building genuine relationships and partnerships. The way they communicate and collaborate, it strengthens bonds, both within their organization and with the broader community at large. That's a real rarity, not just in the agricultural industry, but in any industry. So it is my privilege to be able to introduce Cody Jorgenson from Jorgenson Land Cattle.
Like I said, kind of where we start off with this, I actually based this off of a book.
Okay.
And so it was by it's a book based off of Dan, I believe his name is Dan Sutherland. And it's called The Gap and the Gain. And it's the idea of it is it's hard for folks to live in gratitude if they're always pushing out towards goal setting. Mm-hmm. So the goals are always out there in front of us, and usually we creep up to them, and the goalposts move out a little bit, and you never quite reach the goal.
Right.
And so the cool thing is in living in gratitude, if you look backwards and you go, look where we started and look where we're at now, look how much progress we've made. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of the idea. Okay. So can you give me the 5,000-foot overview of what is Jorgenson Land Cattle? Sure. Who started it? What does that organization look like when it started? What does it look like now?
Okay. So in 1909, that's when Tripp County was actually settled.
Really?
And my great-grandfather and great-grandmother actually, they staked their 160 acres just a few miles from our headquarters where they are today.
From like where the lodge is at right now?
Well, we're our barn, where all the cattle are. Mm-hmm. It's actually, I don't know if you know where Cody Cartett currently lives.
Yeah, okay.
That's the original 160 that my grandma actually got as her.
In 1909.
1909, yep. So
holy smokes. Like the homestead's all there still
the homestead, too? I still have the rubble is still kind of there, but it's right by Cody's house. It's not too far away.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that quarter of land, it's a really interesting story. They came over from Denmark, and they stayed with her parents in White Lake, South Dakota for quite some time.
Yep.
Until they got their claim, and then they put everything in a wagon and came across the river and started living on their claim.
Holy cow.
And so in that process, of course, you've seen all these Western movies where on the Oregon Trail, and they've had all these challenges. Whenever they come to a body of water, it's always a battle.
That's quite a thing.
And it happened to them. Their wagon flipped over and they lost a lot of stuff and went down the river.
Wow.
And so anyway, they did get here, and they started living off the land. Back then, diversity was having turkeys and chickens and swine, and you just
getting your vitamin C from plums and whatever else. That's what my grandparents did.
You did what you could do to eat. Right.
Wow. So at this time, how old are they? Like when they come across the river, do you know how like their age?
I'm gonna guess early 20s. I
Really?
don't know that for sure.
Okay.
My grandmother did record a tape
Just kids.
they were just kids that we
Wow.
actually digitized, and I should get that to you too. That would be good.
Wow.
She tells quite the story.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So they big Catholic family. They had several kids. My grandfather Martin being one of them.
Yep.
There were two boys older than Grandpa Martin, Stanley and Don, and both of those guys actually went to World War II. And Grandpa didn't have to go because he was
Too
the
young.
youngest. He was too young, and he was the
Holy
youngest
smokes.
one, the only boy left on the farm.
Wow.
And so that was
So he was the youngest.
he was the youngest. Yeah.
Wow.
They did have another. There was another boy that died really early to leukemia, and but I think he died at age 7, perhaps somewhere in there. But they
So just three boys in that
and there
family?
I believe there's 3 girls as well.
Oh, wow. So 6 kids.
3 or 4 girls. I can't remember exactly.
Wow.
But yeah, there's a big family. Yep.
Yep.
So after the war, they lost one of the brothers in the war, Stanley. He was shot down in a B-24.
Wow.
He was the bombardier, and then the other brother Don came back, and he joined a partnership with my grandpa Martin,
Wow.
and they farmed together as Jorgensen brothers until 1975.
75 is when that.
Yep.
Wow.
And-
And so it was basically, was it just so I've got it clear. So it's basically Martin farming with his
Brother.
with his brother.
Yep.
Okay. 10
His brother, because their dad died in 1975. So,
Oh, right then.
yeah, he
So then
did.
it's the
He
two
did
brothers.
farm with them a little bit, but
I
he
gotcha.
mostly, he was old.
Yeah.
Back in that time.
Wow.
So it was Martin and Don
Yep.
who formed the Jorgensen brothers,
I gotcha.
and then in 1975 is when then my dad became involved. Shortly right out of college, he then actually revolved Don's equity, other than the land. He bought him out of the business.
Yep.
And then it was Martin and Greg, my father, in the business. As it was then, I think they called it Jorgensen Farms.
Yeah.
Okay, then in 1985, roughly right in there, then Dad's brother Brian Jorgensen entered into the business, and then it was Jorgensen Farms Incorporated at that time.
Okay.
And at that time, we had really grown quite a bit, really gotten into the hogs. The cattle thing was really cranked up. Of course,
Yep.
Martin Jorgensen, he was the one who really originally started. He kind of pioneered what I call performance testing Angus cattle.
Really?
He was-
And when did that start?
That started in the 50s.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that part of? Oh, there were two brothers up in the Miller area.
Yeah.
Last name starts with a J. I can't say it.
Jennings.
The
Clinton
Jennings
Jennings.
brothers.
Yeah, they actually
were they
did-
kind of part of that?
They did. They worked together on a lot of things. Yeah.
Wow.
They did. Yep.
What's funny is my grandfather Hoyt Jr. One of the Jennings brothers, I don't remember which, helped pay for college for my great grandfather, and he went and did an animal husbandry thing at South Dakota State.
Okay.
And he was he passed some of the first glass straws. He was
The ambulance, yeah.
one of the very first AI guys, and he AI'd like years and
Yeah.
years and years for the Jennings
Yeah,
brothers.
absolutely did. Yeah.
It's just so interesting that all kind of started right then and there, and
Yeah.
guys were leasing herds out, and anyway, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So they basically was Martin kind of centered on that Angus breed like the Jennings
He
were?
was. He did. He knew that the Black Angus cow was the most trouble-free cow.
Really?
Out there. They had all these other breeds at that time. The exotic breeds, the Simmentals, the Charolais, anything other than Angus and Hereford, they were kind of coming into the United States, and not a lot of genetic pressure ever put on just the
Yep.
female of those kind of cattle, right?
Yep.
So up in this part of the world, the Hereford and the Angus were pretty much dominant. And really, Grandpa, really fundamentally what he did was, he started studying, weaned calves.
Yep.
And weighing them.
Yep.
Weighing them at birth, weighing them at weaning time.
Wow.
And then comparing those calves to each other.
Just being meticulous about record keeping.
Record keeping, and like if one weighed 600 and the other weighed 550,
Yep.
then that got recorded and they put an index on that calf. So
Yep.
that would have been, whatever 15% above the average
Wow.
at that time. And so then he takes that data and he ties it back to the mama. So
Wow.
So that over time, as that cow has calves,
Yep.
he can look at her set of calves that she weaned off every year, and he can say, well, she had 10 calves,
Sure.
and they were all averaged, 5% above the average.
So he's making this correlative data. Is he just writing this on paper?
Yeah, I have them on my desk. They're called cow cards,
No kidding.
and it has a handwritten pedigree of the cow on the front,
Wow.
and then sire and dam, and then on the back is a list of her calves, what they weighed and what they indexed.
Holy smokes.
And then actually who, if it was a bull, then who it went to, who it got sold to,
Sure.
or where it went.
But that's how he kept track of that, all by hand. And
All
so
by hand.
at this time, you said it was about 85 when it's kind of Farms Inc. Is that about right?
Yeah, in 1985, when he was doing this was, we jumped clear back into the 50s there when he was
Okay.
with the cow cards.
Okay.
In the 80s is when we really started to use, computers, so
Sure.
to speak, to calculate all this stuff.
Yep.
And he was one of the first ones. He and Bill Ferguson worked together on some things, trying to use technology to
Wow.
to help us out in production agriculture.
That is incredible. And so he was calculating most of this by hand for what,
many years.
15 years,
Yeah.
something like
Oh
that?
yeah, that maybe more than that.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, from the 50s to the 80s. Yeah.
Wow. And so he keeps a record of that eventually ends up getting digitized at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then from, the 80s and 90s, does that, at what point, like say when Greg and Martin started working together there, what's the size of Jorgensen Land and Cattle at that point in time?
Yeah, so we probably had around 350 mama cows,
Wow.
and we were farming, I would say maybe around 2,500 acres is all.
Wow.
And today it's, we're up to
Significant.
1,500 mama cows and farming around 15,000 acres.
Holy smokes. Wow. So that whole thing is, from that point in time, has it kind of grown in spurts? Has it been consistent growth? What's that looked like from that times when it's Farm Inc.
Yeah.
And then how has that kind of expanded out?
That's a great question, and I think in production agriculture, I think you grow when you can.
Sure.
Not every year what is going to allow you to grow, right?
And in the years like right now, you pay all the bills you can.
Yes, yeah. You just it's kind of you grow when you can, and through almost all your career, you just stick all the dollars back into growth.
Right.
I mean, that's just what you do.
Right.
And in fact, that's what Grandpa Martin did, and his equity, he ended up keeping it until the very end of his life, and then at the end of his life, he just pretty much gives it away, right?
Wow.
But he just had a great life, and that's
Wow.
the greatest generation of people, right?
100%.
They just didn't want anything. They had it all.
There was something about that generation too, where it seemed like they set up so many of their family. Of course, the legacy builders is kind of what I have in my head, where
Yeah.
there are some in that generation where they set up every single kid with a homestead or something like that and got them started.
Yep. Yep.
Where oftentimes the folks that were in that generation had nothing
Yeah.
to their name.
And I think that's why they did that.
Right.
You want for your kids what you didn't have,
Absolutely.
or you want a better life for them. So
Absolutely.
I think that's just human nature.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in the 80s, are you guys still doing hogs?
We are. Yep. We
Wow.
did hogs up until 2003.
kind of when the bottom quit and it
Yeah.
quit making sense.
Yeah, we had to.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So hogs were always hogs are really unique for us. They were really unique for us. It kept you in cash flow, and so that the hogs pretty much just paid all of the hired men's wages
Right.
that we had.
They kept
And
you going.
Kept you going every
Yep.
day. Yep.
Yep.
And so they were a lot of work, and there's a lot of challenges there, but the hog really did treat us quite well
Wow.
through most of our generations there. My dad, he took a liking to the hogs, and really when he came back from college, then they really invested, and they went from about 250 sows then up to about 1,250 sows.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and then
5X'd on it.
yeah, they really did. And then that business, they did that in 1993, and then we ran that business until basically 10 years.
Wow.
And then it was one of those things where you either had to grow with the industry,
Yeah.
or if no one in the family really wanted to have a passion for it,
You got to really like it.
you really got to like it. And so that's when we chose to sell the barns and get out of the hog business.
Wow.
And really refocus our efforts on
Sure.
on cattle and inland.
Around here, we're used to rolling up our sleeves and figuring things out. I started Cybertech Systems because I saw a need. Businesses needing reliable IT support, even though they were located in the rural Midwest. And those businesses were often forgotten about by large technology providers from more populated areas. Your business doesn't have time for outages. It doesn't have time for failed backups or poor networking or outdated phone systems. Cybertech Systems can solve those problems and more by providing expert technology solutions and support. And we tailor our services to rural Midwestern businesses, both big and small. So from single employee CPAs to hospitals with more than 300 employees, we support them all. We provide per computer pricing so that you don't have to pay for what you don't need. Visit our website and learn about how you can offload your business's technology headache onto a partner that is tailor-made for the job. The right partner makes all the difference. Partner with Cybertech, because we're bringing technology services to rural America.
And so I guess what's interesting to me, though, is that a good chunk of the legacy of Jorgensen has been a partnership of sorts from the start. I mean, it was Martin and Don.
Yep.
Then it was Martin and Greg.
Yep.
And so there's always been a precedent there
Yep.
of cooperation and collaboration.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And I feel that is one thing that Grandpa Martin really allowed and drove down generations was,
Wow.
to us was that communication. It all starts with communication, right?
Right.
And if that's not there, then it can go south in a hurry, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's really, I think he did a really good job of pushing that down through the three of us for sure, our Greg, Brian, and myself. So in 2000, then that's when Jorgenson Land Cattle was formed as a general partnership.
2004.
2000.
2000.
2000.
Okay.
Yeah, the year 2000, right after
Wow.
the turn of the century there.
Wow.
And that's when I became part of the business.
Yep.
And Brian and I, and my dad, and Grandpa Martin, of course.
Yep.
We were all equal partners at the time.
Wow.
And that was a good. Even my dad actually gave up quite a bit of equity to get me and as an equal partner.
Wow.
And
And at that time, what age are you?
I'm 25.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
How
25.
cool.
Yeah, 25.
Wow.
Yeah, so he put a lot of trust in me, and it was great. I think the equity that he talks about this today, the equity that he gave up to me to get started was a really good investment for him. So
Right. Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
talks about that. I think that's pretty cool. So
Well, it's fun too when you've got folks in the family that believe in you, and then one of the things that I love about living in this area is that there's, the analogy of reap and sow. And so you're not going to harvest anything if you don't plant it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when folks, one, the folks that are willing to plant, and then two, that are joyful regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
And when it works out, it's even that much better,
Yeah.
because everybody looks smart when it happens, but it's also it's a gamble no matter what, but it's just fun when it works out.
It is, yeah. And I think one of the things that I often talk about was, we're blessed to operate this property really for a very short period of time.
Right.
You stop and think about 60 to 80 years.
Yeah.
That
Blink of an eye.
It is.
Blink of an eye.
I mean,
Yeah.
with respect to the land, it's, so really we don't really own any of this. We're tenants for a
Right.
time being.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in 2000, you're incorporated as a partnership.
Yep.
And then so at that point in time, you're probably just planning on getting done with hogs, because you were saying your hogs, you guys exited the hogs at 2004.
Yep.
The partnership started 4 years prior to that, but basically refocusing on the cattle right around 2004. And then, so what happens? Where does the decision go for you for in terms of who's the thought leader? Like, we got to hammer down and just really lean into the cattle side.
Yeah, I think, well, the three of us all at that time, when I speak about it, it'd be my dad, Greg, and Brian, and
Yep.
and myself. And so there's a large age diversity between the three of us.
Yep.
So Brian is 14 years younger than my dad,
Uh-huh.
and I'm 10 years younger than Brian.
Wow.
And so, and we each kind of had our own different passion, right?
Yep.
That's about the same time. Brian's the farmer of the family,
Okay.
and is passionate about soil health.
Yep.
And at that time, we were just getting started with what I call agritainment,
Yep.
commercial pheasant hunting.
Okay.
And that's really was kind of my legacy. I started that right out of college, and
Yep.
as a means to supplement my being there.
Yep.
And at that time, Dad was still really heavily involved in the cattle.
Yep.
But wanted to focus more on sales than actually breeding them. And so I actually took a liking to actually making the matings and breeding the
Sure.
cattle,
The genetics.
the genetics piece.
Wow.
And that is exactly about the same time we started renting bulls to people.
No
It was
kidding.
Right in that time frame. Yep.
So you turned you turned Greg loose on the sales piece.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you held down the zeros and ones, the operations of it, so to speak.
Yes.
And Brian basically went and planted all the feed to keep it all going.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Wow.
That's exactly how it.
Wow.
And it's not a lot different today, except for we have young Nicholas now. He's involved. He's our CEO.
Yep.
And he's 14 years younger than me.
Gotcha.
So it's a really nice age diversity.
You've got a pretty even, steady gap there of age groups, and kind of at some point in time along the continuum, you've all have seen it somewhere along the road.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I would imagine adds a fair amount of balance to what you guys are doing.
It does. It does. Yeah. It really does. And when you stop and look at our logo, and we all three kind of unify in this, our logo really does kind of tell what our business is about.
Yep.
The diamond in the middle being the largest, and the bull, the
Yep.
Black Angus bull really is our widget.
Yep.
And then of course it takes several crop acres to feed these. In fact, it takes 2.3 acres of farmland to feed a bull annually. So that
Wow.
right now we're marketing 6,000 Angus bulls. So you can kind of see where we
Gotta
need a lot of farm
snag some
acres.
ground to
Yeah.
go put some feed in.
That's right. Yep.
Holy smokes.
And then the third part of our logo then would be the agritainment piece,
Yep.
the commercial pheasant hunting, and
Yep.
really, it's really when our family then looks at an acre of property, we look at it from three fronts, and
Yep.
and I love you if you've heard me speak publicly, I tell this no matter what I'm speaking about, but the first thing and first and foremost, most important is soil health.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying, even our crop acres, Brian's trying to get our soils back to their most native state.
Right.
And then the second thing on that same acre, if we if we can graze a hoof, if we can put a hoof on it, graze an animal on that same acre, whether it's crop ground or native prairie, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Grazing is such an important piece to that acre. And then, of course, the third thing would be to do what I call production agricultural entertainment or agritainment.
Yep.
And our family thinks that if we can do all three of those things and be good at it, or do it in what we would call world class,
then
we think our family will be viable for more generations.
Wow.
Many. Yep.
Well, I mean, just hearing you talk about that, it seems like you've got, I keep coming back to this word communication. You guys have talked about this a fair amount internally. Mm-hmm. Has there been like some structures or some frameworks that you guys have used in terms of scaffolding or organizational pieces that have helped to be able to really lean in and focus in on those three legs of that stool that's holding up the organization?
Yeah. We've even when Martin was involved in the business, he forced us to have Monday morning meetings. So we'd meet as partners at 6:30, and then we would meet at 7:30 with the entire employee group. Okay. Things are a bit different today, where we still have an early morning meeting but it's with our key people that manage things. And then we have a main meeting with everybody at 7:30, and then from there we actually break out into 3 or 4 different groups or teams. And then get into the weeds about what we want done and who's doing this and who's doing that. And so Grandpa really did kind of build that intuitively, I guess, into us about communication.
And that came from Martin.
It started with him.
Wow.
And we've kind of progressed, through the years. But on top of that, also, annually we have strategic planning. Where we actually, try to come up with, some goals for the year. And, really try to hammer them out. So that helps us with budgeting and all the things like that. And then monthly, the ownership group gets to spend an afternoon together, and sometimes we talk about the market. There's really no agenda there. Sometimes we talk about business. Usually we go through our financials at that time. And we actually have hired a gentleman that kind of leads us through a discussion. So he's a third party gentleman that kind of has, taken us through some of the stuff that he's seen and
kind of ag focus.
100%
I
ag
gotcha.
focus.
Wow.
He actually, his name is Alan Hoyer, and he works for a company called Keep Farmers Farming.
Really?
And it's really, he does estate planning and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, no kidding. So he really has his finger on the pulse and is just basically trying to keep you guys out of some of the pitfalls that he's seen.
Just kind of keep us. And it's been extremely helpful.
Wow. It's funny. We actually did. We followed a book by Gino Wickman called Traction, and we were just looking for a scaffolding or a framework. And what you're describing sounds exactly like that. And so we're only about 3-4 months into it, but it's been a game changer for us. I mean, it's just, it almost feels like night and day, chaos and, peace almost.
But, it helps to have that kind of figured out, so to speak, or roadmap.
Man alive. Wow. So today, in 2025, I don't know if I have a bird up there or what's going on, but
I think it's my chair.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to tighten those puppies up. What the heck? Okay. Well, I'm glad you told me. Otherwise, I'd be up in the ceiling trying to search for
Figure
something.
it out. Yeah.
But so in 2025, you guys, seems like you've got some pretty big key initiatives that you guys are pushing on. You alluded to the 6,000 bulls lease. Are you actively doing that right now, or are we working towards that?
That's where we are today.
Wow.
Yep.
And are you guys planning on expanding that?
The 5-year plan, this is 3 years ago now, or no, not quite. The 5-year plan would be to be at 8,000 head of bulls at 2030.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, at your rate, basically, is the bottleneck on that really just being able to grow the amount of feed to be able to support that?
That's definitely one of them. That's correct.
I gotcha.
Definitely one of them. The other bottleneck is it's hard to grow an environment like this when the calf price is really, really strong.
Right.
And because you're buying these bull calves at weaning time.
Right.
And then so where you got to kind of grapple with, where is this market going to change?
Yeah.
And we have these bulls in our possession for 24 months. And when can we, or how can we leverage that so we're not, really get swung at there?
And so, economic conditions right now has been huge. I mean, I have seen some really cool stuff coming from you guys for on the agritainment piece for like the golf course. Yeah. I'm assuming that's another piece.
It is
in that.
Yeah.
Future plans.
It is, and it all boils back down to I guess I didn't know this when we started commercial pheasant hunting. We just started that business just because we were blessed that we had pheasants in our part of the world.
Yep.
And I enjoyed doing it. I enjoy meeting new people.
Yep.
I didn't realize it was going to grow into what it's grown into.
It's a pretty significant thing now.
It is, and especially from a standpoint when you look at like advocacy of what we do.
Yep.
Telling that story about our family.
Yep.
That's what my goal is with this golf course, with the sporting club, I'll
Sure.
say. And it's about what we're doing with the land.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, our family's legacy. The golf course, we're talking about not hardly moving any dirt, right? It's
wow.
They discovered golf. They're
Yeah.
not manufacturing it.
Wow.
So they're using the land to make the golf course. So to
No
speak.
kidding.
Yes.
That's neat. I've never heard of that.
That's the theme. Yeah, that's kind of the theme. And then
Wow.
it's our goal someday to be able to feed our own genetics, our own beef through
Yep.
the clubhouse. And then probably most importantly, the members. It's going to be a goal of mine to make sure every member gets to see our operation or what we do from a day-to-day basis annually. So
Wow.
when they come to spend time at the sporting club, then I take them on what we call a farm tour and show
kidding.
them around.
Fantastic.
And it's great because these guys that are coming, I do it currently with our pheasant hunters.
Okay.
And these guys are at the minimum 3 generations removed from agriculture.
Yep.
And they just desire to learn a little bit about where their food comes from.
There's a hunger there. Once you get 2-3 generations away, there's some folks that are real interested about what's going on here.
Yeah, and that is
That's
true.
right.
And so this really does allow us to advocate for what we do every day.
Wow.
And I look at our operation. It's we're not just an operation that raises bulls. We're striving to raise the very best genetics that can possibly
Yep.
be grown in this part of the world, right?
Yep.
We're not just raising feed for the cattle. We're raising high quality feed.
Yep.
By keeping our soils, in check.
Yep.
We're not just offering a pheasant hunt. We want to offer a world class pheasant hunt.
Wow.
And so those are things that we're trying to convey, to not only just our clients, but anybody that comes to visit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love the notion of world class. That's one of the things that I've, again, we've been working on some stuff internally, and just the piece of what is the thing that you think you can be the best in the world at.
Yeah.
That's the thing you got to focus on.
That's right.
And let the rest of it drop.
Yeah, that's correct.
You don't need to be a jack of all trades. You need to be an ace of one.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and what's awesome is that you've got quite a few hands, both in leadership and in some pretty excellent employees
Yes.
that are driving this train, making this whole thing happen.
Yeah, it's like any business. It takes tremendous people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's no question about it.
So what does that footprint look like for you guys now? I mean, what are the economics in terms of JLC, the amount of folks that are on staff to be able to drive this thing forward?
Yeah. So when I first started, in the late 90s and became a partner in the year 2000, I believe we had 7 full-time employees.
Wow.
Today we have 50.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
50.
Holy smokes. So you guys are not that far away from 10xing what you've done
Yeah.
in 20 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's exactly right.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's everything across from the farming side to the agritainment to the
To the cattle. Yeah.
to the cattle.
Yep, that's
Across those
everything.
3 industries.
That's-
Wow.
that's correct.
How cool.
Yep.
How cool. And so 2025, I mean, I wanted to be able to cover from 1909 to 2025. Do you have any other big initiatives that JLC is wanting to go pursue or do?
So I think, I would say the biggest initiative would be to make sure that the business is in play, to make sure that the next generation comes back and is part of it.
Wow.
And I know we are in position to do that. My son, Philip, and I have 2 sons, Philip and William, and they both are very, very interested in coming back to the
Wow.
operation.
How cool.
In fact, Philip is here. He's managing our feedlot right now.
Wow.
And a key person that actually gets to come to that 6:30 meeting every Monday.
Wow.
And so we've done it. We've got the 5th generation in play.
That's the dream, isn't it?
And that's one of the dreams, yeah.
Right.
And just to make sure that that the new generation then comprehends and understands what it takes to get it to the 6th generation.
Wow. Yeah, because most places don't get past 3 generations, right?
That's right.
And so you're currently in the place of the 5th generation right now, looking forward downrange, trying to figure out how are we going to make sure that we've got a whole this thing continues so that the 6th generation has something to pick up and go.
I think that's one of the most important things that we can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've heard of anybody that's done 6 generations.
Yeah,
That's a pretty rare club.
In the farming world. I would say probably not.
Wow.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, things that is a rare club, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So Philip and William. So Nick is at the CEO spot. I'm assuming he's hoping for the same thing. He's going to end up having a passel of kids. Fingers crossed.
He's got a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that are wanting to come back and do the same thing. How does this family piece work? I mean, to be able to make all 3 of these legs of this stool be able to work and drive. I mean, it almost feels like you guys have just got to be living night and day, just cranking out work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think this is something that probably Nick has really brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Is he's really forced us all to look at it like a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, don't get me wrong. We love our family. We love working with family.
Right.
But it is not necessarily just when it comes to the business piece. You have to take the emotion away from all of that.
Right.
And if there's somebody in the family that is not qualified and there's someone else as a non-family member qualified to do a job better, then it's recognized, and that's we just communicate that.
Wow.
Right? There's nothing against that particular family member.
Right.
It's just that's just how it's been done.
The business has got to move forward.
The business has to go forward. Yep. And
Wow.
We've just been fortunate enough in the 4th generation, Nick and I, that there's an age diversity there, and not a lot of other cousins too that are battling for the same position. That
Sure.
we've never really had that.
Wow.
And that time will come.
Yep.
But what we have recognized since now we have 50 employees that family members are very important.
Right.
They're a very important piece to what we do.
Yep.
We have several family members that work for us.
Wow.
And as everything else, I mean, they're the most relied upon people, right?
Right.
They're your family.
Well, and they carry the torch, right?
They do.
They
understand the cause.
right.
Yep.
Yep.
They understand the cause.
They ride for the brand. There's something for that it's just, and it's really easy to get emotions and business mixed up where you've kind of got it. It's almost like one serves the other,
Yeah.
depending on, and it's a rare thing when they're both on equal footing and you can make time for both.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
And again, it boils back down to that communication piece and just communicating whatever kind of issue that might arise.
Yeah.
And just get it taken care of.
Wow. Well, that's really all I wanted to cover. Is there anything else that would be advantageous for you guys that you'd want to have? I mean, anything that you want to visit with, or I guess the one thing I would say is I think the last time I caught you, you guys were doing a sponsorship for CCI.
Yeah.
And so that community outreach, I was really appreciative of, and I would love to say thank you again for you guys doing that.
You're very
It's
welcome.
absolutely incredible. That is one of those pieces that I don't think gets said enough, especially in local communities, especially in organizations that are into a fifth and then hoping for a sixth generation. You guys have been an economic driver for this town and for this county for over 100 years.
Yes. And I don't really look at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it like if I don't have this town,
Mm-hmm.
we can't do what we do.
Right.
We can't grow like we grow.
Yep.
We can't. It's impossible.
Yep.
There are many businesses in Winter, South Dakota that if I didn't have them as a partner,
Mm-hmm.
then we would not be where we are today.
Yep.
That's a matter of fact.
Yep.
And so you always, you talk about community support. Well, I look at it the other way. They're supporting us as much as we're supporting them.
Sure.
And I just love that.
Well, that's fantastic. It's just oftentimes there's one of the reasons I think podcasts like this, or at least conversations like this, need to be had more often is that, especially in this area, people don't celebrate the great things that they do enough. Mm-hmm. And it's not simply an ego thing. It's just the fact that when things are going well, it's plumb fine to talk about that.
Yeah.
And so right now, I mean, it just seems like you guys are cruising. Obviously, there's some economic pressure. Obviously, there's pears are high right now, right? And calf prices are high right now. But
they are indeed.
So there's pressure on both sides of that, depending on you're buying or selling. But at the end of the day, it's just fun to be able to sit down and see an organization succeed for this long term.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and I would encourage too. I try to do this, and this is something that I want to talk about in the future for us. There are a lot of people from Winter, South Dakota that don't have an understanding of the scope of what we do out in Northern Trip County, right?
Yep.
Yes, I know they've heard of the bulls and they hear the radio ads and all of this, but I would encourage, I would love anybody who wants to come out and take a couple hours in the afternoon and go for a tour.
Yep.
I do it every week with my pheasant hunters.
Wow.
And I would love to do it with anybody that gives us a call and
That's
just
fantastic.
give them a show. Yeah, give them a tour.
The logistics of something that size is hard to comprehend if you don't see it.
Yeah,
It's just a lot.
that is true. Even for myself,
Yeah.
I have to. It's a reset for me.
Yeah.
If I'm giving the tour and we're looking at all these bulls and whatnot, and I have to sit there and think, wow, holy smokes!
It takes a lot of hands to be able to figure out the X's and O's and just contain.
Yeah.
Because it's like anarchy just wants to happen on its own, you know, and just to be able to bundle all that up together and keep moving forward's insane.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So cool.
It is. It's truly an honor to be able to be a part of it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I just want to thank you a bunch for sitting down and visiting with us. This is really fun. Hopefully, this will be beneficial to you, and if nothing else, you can at least bring this back to your folks and and just be proud of what you guys are doing. This is absolutely incredible.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
No, absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.